everybody. Welcome back to Season's Ebb and Flow for the season of divorce and beyond. My name's Lee Wright. I am a divorce coach, and today I'm very excited to be interviewing Jigna Patel. She is a life transition coach and a mindful living coach. And I'm going to be just asking her questions about how she helps people incorporate mindfulness into their day-to-day lives. And so for right now, I'm just going to turn it over to Jigna to let her tell us a little bit about how she got here, how she evolved to find this, and why she loves working with people on it.
Thank you so much for having me, Lee. It's my pleasure to be here with you and chatting about mindfulness. That's my platform. And as a life transition coach, I'm going to reset. I fumbled a little bit. As a life transition coach, I'm really passionate about weaving in mindfulness to help people go and learn how to regulate their nervous system as they're navigating treacherous waters in life. So whether it could be navigating a divorce, it could be navigating moving to a new city, moving to a new country, having being parents for the first time, or being empty nesters. I mean, the list goes on and on. Whenever you're impacted by a big life transition and you find yourself at a crossroad, that's where my coaching really comes in. So again, mindfulness is the platform that really helped me through my major life transition recently. And I'm just really passionate about how easy it is to weave it in.
Mm. So I definitely work on incorporating mindfulness into my day-to-day life. And like for me, the thing that I've found to be the most helpful is doing periodic check-ins with my body throughout the day. And even just taking like 3 deep breaths, just knowing that that calms my nervous system. And if I do that kind of throughout the day, it helps me just, for one, be more in touch with my body, but also like keep my baseline lower. How would you, if someone said to you, well, what is mindfulness? Like what for you is the way that you explain it to your clients and what you are helping them do when you say mindfulness?
So, how I sum up mindfulness in one sentence, to me, mindfulness means really bringing your entire awareness and presence into the now. And so, whatever you're doing, if you can just use your senses to connect with your body. So, if you're washing dishes, right? The way that your hands are touching the water and the soap, the smell of that dishwashing liquid, what your eyes are seeing, what you're smelling, that really helps you bring your experience into the present moment.
Yeah.
So often in the world that we're living in today as modern humans, our mind is really taking over in terms of what we're experiencing. We're gone with our thoughts. We're thinking about the next thing. We're, dwelling on the past, and we really are hardly spending time in the present moment.
Yes.
And the present moment is here and then it's gone, right? And so if we can just be more mindful about that, and it doesn't mean that you have to sit for hours, meditating all day, every day. It really is what you just said. You just take 3 breaths and to connect with your body and really literally feeling the surface beneath your feet, or if you're sitting, beneath your sits bones. So those are really simple ways to just help yourself regulate, help your nervous system regulate, especially when you're having on those days when it's really, really intense.
Mhm. Yeah, and that when I work with my clients, like let's say prepping to go into mediation, I talk to them about like trying to ground themselves in the morning and know that they can ask to go to the restroom and just take a few minutes to reset. Like we get worked up, and once we're worked up, we are not, our frontal cortex is not online as much as that emotional reptilian part of our brain. And sometimes just excusing yourself and taking those moments for yourself to like regroup is so important.
It
And
really
yeah.
Yeah, it really is. And you're essentially, by giving yourself that pause, you're creating that space so that you can just, think about your next step from
Mhm.
a place of, without being reactive or fight or flight, right? Just
Yeah.
taking those three deep breaths, say, okay, what is my next move? Especially in mediation where it's constantly having to make decisions and to really know how to set those boundaries for yourself. Um,
Mhm.
and that, as you know, is super important when you're going through a divorce. So absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, I think, and what I want to pick out there that you just said is boundaries for yourself. I think when people, a lot of times when they talk about boundaries, they're always assuming like I'm creating this boundary to protect myself from this other person. But what I think an important way to think about it is a boundary for yourself. And those can be boundaries like I'm not going to work past 8 p.m., or I am going to allot 3 hours of self care time a week, and I'm going to hold that boundary firm. So it's boundaries with yourself as much as boundaries tied to other people. And
Absolutely.
yeah, so let's say somebody came to you and they were like, I'm just feeling so overwhelmed and there's so many things coming at me. What are some things that you do with them or encourage them to start practices or
Yeah, so the simple, if a client is coming into a session feeling a lot of intensity, I breathe with them.
mm,
And so I do a guided, whether it's a guided meditation or visualization or breath work, it really depends on whatever's coming. So my toolbox is well stocked in terms of variety of things that can help them. And
yeah.
so, everyone has their own different ways of coming back to their breath. And so
Mhm.
meditation might be hard. The word meditation could be a bit, too much for some folks, right? And so it really is a simple, just follow my voice and be gentle with yourself. And let's just breathe. Let's just inhale and take a deep inhale if you are able, because sometimes that doesn't work for people either. So I
Mhm.
meet them where they're at and we
Yeah.
figure out whatever breathing technique can happen. And if I run into a friend, I'm outside and a friend shows up or a neighbor and is who's frazzled, maybe possibly just, hey, let's check out the trees or the sun or listen to the birds without having to identify what bird or tree you're looking at or hearing.
Right.
Really is just connecting with your senses to the earth,
Yeah.
to be honest with you. Yeah. And coming back.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so many of us we're either rehashing the past or thinking about our to-do list. And like especially when you're going through divorce, you're rehashing how did we get to this point? Like, and hopefully you're looking also at like what did I contribute to us getting here? But there's a lot of looking back and then a lot of fear looking forward of like, oh my gosh, divorce is so overwhelming. Where do I start? This constant urgency that I have to get so much paperwork done and it, reminding yourself that being in the present moment and calming yourself down and getting your nervous system regulated is so important in order to get that paperwork done. But if you don't do the calming exercises in the present, that work is going to be so much harder. And I think, why do you think that people get so dysregulated during life transitions?
Oh my goodness. There, in the case we can stick with the example of the divorce, and it's just shattering, right? It's shattering. I would say especially it's shattering no matter what. And if you add kids to the mix, it's a whole other level of your world just being inside out and upside down. And so you're not feeling anchored to anything during that time in your life. You're feeling destabilized, anxious, nervous. You don't know which way to go. And and there are things to do to help yourself, of course. But if you don't have a community, where do you go? If you don't have a mindfulness toolkit, where do you go? And so, when you talk about mindfulness, it goes, there's meditation, of course, and breath work and all those exercises. And, we talked about setting boundaries. Setting boundaries is super important as part of mindfulness, and as well as self-compassion. And so when you talk about, rehashing the past, it's like we're dropping little bombs on ourselves every single time. We're remembering the past and thinking, what if I did this or said this? Could I have done something differently? I mean, you're really spending a lot of energy even thinking about something that will never come into fruition anyway. And so by showing up and really reprogramming that inner voice, that
Mhm.
most of us have a critical inner voice, right? Really that awareness to reprogram that voice and to turn it from a critic into a nurturing, loving voice, that a loving voice that you would use, for your best friend, for your pet, for your children. And so instead of asking yourself, what if, when you catch yourself, awareness is always number one, is the number one step. So when you're catching yourself, going into the past, lovingly bringing yourself into the present moment.
Mhm.
That was then, this is now. Let's figure out a way to move forward, that is helpful to you, that is loving to you. How can we figure that out? What can you do now? And so you're not rehashing the past, because every time you rehash the past or the future, by the way, our mind doesn't have the concept of time. And so
Mhm.
the brain is processing that story as if it's happening right now. So
Yeah.
there's a physiological reaction that our body is taking on and keeping score. So that's what I mean by you're dropping bombs on yourself every single time you're rehashing a stressful past. Um, so I just want to stop there. That was a lot that I shared beyond your questions. So I just want to check in.
Yeah, no, that was lovely and so on point. I think there were so many things that you mentioned in there. Self-compassion is something that I think a lot of us, it's hard to even get our head around because it's not something that we were taught. It's only recently that I've started to see it in print anywhere, and where it's becoming slightly more mainstream of the whole concept of reparenting your inner child and actually uh, not lambasting yourself for mistakes that you've made and recognizing that we all make mistakes. That's how we learn in life. And so that concept of self compassion is so crucial, especially when you're going through divorce, because even the divorce process itself is, you don't know what you're doing and you make mistakes, or you maybe you choose a lawyer who isn't the greatest lawyer and you end up having to switch lawyers, or and then you are like, how did I make that mistake? And all of this is, it's hard. These are hard things. They're not things most of us have ever done before. And giving yourself grace and self-compassion is so crucial. And I think having coaches to help you see that is so necessary sometimes. Like your personal network, like your parents and your friends, they can be that for you a little bit, but sometimes one, they get exhausted, and two, sometimes they aren't skilled enough to help you actually see that you are being so hard on yourself. And um, and then the other thing you said is the story that you are in. And maybe you can tell us a little bit more about why the story that people are kind of saying in their own heads can be detrimental or make things harder for them.
Sure. Well, let me start with, giving the example that we can all relate to. When you're looking at you're thinking about a lovely memory that you've had with a loved one. Pick any one of them. When you're recollecting that memory, it feels so good. You're smiling, your heart is filling up with remembering all of those feelings and the good times that you had. Um, and we can relate to that, right? We have so many memories that we've built with loved ones. And um, and in a similar fashion, when you remember a stressful memory, you can notice the reaction in your body. Like, how are you feeling in different parts of your body? Do you feel a tightness in your chest? Do you feel your heart racing? Do you feel like, you're clenching your jaw and you're feeling the stress really when you're remembering that stressful moment? And so your body is having a reaction to you remembering that incident in your life. And so that's what I mean by when the brain is recollecting something, it does not know that it happened in the past, or whether it's happening now. As far as the reaction is happening, it is happening to your body right now. And so recollecting a loving memory is fantastic, right? But we're not going to walk around doing that all day. That's not realistic. And so when someone is constantly recollecting the stressful memories, they're preventing themselves from taking that next step forward in their healing process. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So we want to, with self-compassion and other mindfulness and breath work and other mindfulness techniques, we want to help them, raise that awareness and detect, oh, I'm in the past, and let me work on bringing myself to the present moment. And
Hmm.
really, whether you're asking yourself questions, whether you're deciding to use movement to get back into your body, whether it's walking, running, dancing, or sometimes you're exhausted. So really listening to your body needing rest, because we are cyclical beings. So we can't be operating at 100 all the time at all seasons. And so really tuning into your body
Yeah.
and figure out what it needs, because if someone is really tired, then going out to walk or run is probably not the best choice to regulate their nervous system. And
Yeah.
so self-care is an important component of mindfulness living. So, so that's what I mean by, when you're recollecting past events, you're really bringing all of that baggage into the present moment, which is then not helping you
Right.
make that next step forward.
Yeah. Yeah, I read the book The Body Keeps the Score, and it really like was so reinforced, that whole concept that what we think and the pain and all of that gets stored in the body. And if we don't address and let those feelings flow through us, so some people, as they're going through divorce, either tend to drink more or work more and distract because they don't want to sit with any of those hard feelings. But if they don't let those feelings come through them, then they get stored in their body and eventually, many times, lead to disease or just, chronic fatigue or any of those autoimmune issues, because they haven't processed the feelings and they are storing so much in their body or staying in stories and letting them take hold within their body. And once I started to understand that, it made me have to really do a lot of work on myself to retrain the way I thought, but also the way I connected with my body. And like I started to understand that I stored a lot of tension in my stomach area, and I had never even realized that until I started really dropping in and paying attention. Like anytime I got a little stressed, I would pause and just try and notice where I was feeling that in my body, and that was so new to me. I had never done anything like that before. I was very disconnected. And I feel like once you start to build that awareness a little bit, it then grows exponentially. But sometimes you need guidance on starting that process for sure. Um, and there was something that you said in what you were saying before that I wanted to touch on, but I have lost it for now. So um, I'll let you share something while I regroup
Sure,
my head.
I'm happy to. And so I wanted to clarify one or make it clear that mindfulness is not the goal of mindfulness is to get us to be more present in the now, because that's where life is just so full of riches that we tend to miss, all the time. And also the self-compassion piece is super important so that you're not beating yourself up
Mm.
trying to perfect the practice of mindfulness. And
Yes.
and that's another topic, that I can talk on for a long time, but I'll say this. The goal is not to prevent you from going into the past. We are humans and we are, engineered, for lack of better term, in a way that allows us to experience a gamut of emotions and in the way that our brains operate, and it's really awesome and fascinating. And so I can get angry. I've been practicing mindfulness for a very long time. I can get angry. I'm allowed to get angry. I'm a human being, experiencing all kinds of emotions, and that is completely normal. And so, even if you're enlightened, you will get angry,
Mm,
and that's okay. So, when you do get angry, the ability to recognize it so that you're not spending a lot of time there.
mhm.
Or or you're able to bounce back faster. So
Yeah.
whatever that looks like, and mindfulness is going to show up in ways that will surprise you. I
Mhm,
remember when I started my journey, I thought, I think I'm doing it right. I'm not sure. And I wasn't seeing immediate results because I was wired to see, immediate results in my life. If I
mhm.
did this, this would happen, and so on and so forth. And with mindfulness, it really is really gradual, and sometimes it shows up in really surprising ways.
Yeah.
And so, what I want to drive forward is it's not something you try once and then it works or doesn't work. It really is gradual, and it's a matter of weaving it in just like you would weave in, brushing your teeth every day. And to
Mhm.
a point where if you don't practice your mindfulness, whatever it looks like, then something's missing. Oh, I didn't spend time in nature today. That's my thing, right? Like I need to step outside for 10 minutes
Mhm.
to do that every day. So hopefully that was a bit of useful information for your audience there. 'Cause
Yeah.
there's a lot of misconceptions about mindfulness.
Yeah. And I think so you touched on that perfectionism of like, okay, now I've been told there are like five things that I should be doing to be doing mindfulness, and then lambasting yourself for not doing all five in the day. And that concept of perfection is unhealthy, like progress, not perfection. If you start to incorporate it and you're starting to make some progress, 1% better is better than none. And trying to be 100% or nothing, it ends up you consider yourself failure. So don't try and put too many things on your plate to do mindfulness. Like add little bits at a time and be very self compassionate if you don't do all the things you told yourself you would. So I think that perfection piece is really important. And then the other piece that you mentioned is rest. And I think our society does not encourage rest, it does not reinforce it positively. People love to say, oh, I'm busy, I'm swamped, because that's recognized as success, or, that's considered good. But I think many people need to feel no guilt for needing rest, taking rest, and be happy to share when they have taken rest because that's what their body told them, because uh it it's self-care, and that is something to be proud of. um how, like, if you can see one of your clients is just like go 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 and expects so much of themselves, how do you encourage them to allow themselves to take rest?
That is such a such a good question because again, we live in a world that is just constant go, go, go. And when we were in our 20s, we had that stamina
Mm.
to go, go, go. And 20 years later, you're just like, I can't go like this anymore. My brain operates differently, my body is operating differently, and my body's changing. Change is a constant in our lives. And on the daily, we are, cells are dying and cells are being born. And and yet we seem to want to operate the way that we did in our 20s. So the body keeps score, like you mentioned, and we will feel the results of that. And there'll be this disconnect of, the body just like not being in sync with your youthful spirit, for lack of better term. So, how would I, to go back to your question, how would I help a client really just take that pause? So, I would dive into their schedule, their self-care regimen, because self-care looks different for everybody. Um, that some form of exercise, what is healthy for your body? Are you eating well? Are you sleeping well? Are you exercising in a way that is, healthy and for your body? So all of those really is a basic checklist, right? And also, are you able to weave in a little bit of meditation? No? Okay, let's start somewhere else. Are you into art? Like creativity is a powerful medicine. And we don't see it as medicine, and that's a bit of a problem because it really when you tap into the right side of your brain, you're really allowing the sense of flow. And so when you're, and it doesn't have always have to be something that you did in the past. So that is a very useful exercise, right? If you used to dance and you stopped dancing for 20 years, try exploring that again, see how that feels. Great. If you want to explore something new, great. All is welcome. And so I'll pick the example of watercoloring because that's something I had an experience with recently. I don't consider myself an artist, but there was something about when I look at watercoloring videos online where the brush is touching the paper and the color just kind of bleeds out and it's doing something really fascinating and relaxing and visually mesmerizing. That was something that really drew me in.
Mm,
And so I said, okay, how can I bring this to home? And I ended up buying a watercoloring book and I have watercolor pens, markers, and I have it on a table, and I have it open. My kids can come and use it. I can come and add to it, and it really is open for the family to come in and just kind of sit there. And it's interesting because when I watch myself or my kids come in and contribute to this piece that really is there to help our mental well-being.
yeah.
And it doesn't even matter what the outcome is. We will stay there for longer than the few minutes that we thought we wanted to stay there for initially. So there's something about creativity that when you kind of hook yourself in, something just kind of keeps flowing out of you and it relaxes your nervous system. And so I would say in any self-care that you do, if it's stressing you out, again, stay in touch with your body. If it's stressing you out, just relax. Just find something that it really is calming, and healthy. Because someone can come and tell me, well, alcohol is calming me down, and that's fine. But check in with your body. See how the alcohol feels the next day, or does it disrupt your sleep, right? Like your body will tell you what's working for it or and what's not.
Yeah. I really love what you said about creativity. I mean, it's beautiful, that whole concept of the watercolors and everybody can contribute to whatever in that, having it out on the table. I think that's such a neat idea. So thank you for sharing that. And I I think we overlook creativity as a form of mindfulness, exploring those outlets. Because actually, during my divorce, I took up Latin dancing, which is something I'd wanted to do for so long. And I did dance as a kid and then took a long hiatus. And that social dancing was something I had been interested in trying as an adult, but had never, well, my ex and I attempted, but it wasn't very successful. So then I did it for myself. And it was like really, I feel like one of the things that helped me through my divorce because it was all for me. And I met wonderful people and it got me out of the house and I was using my body in new ways. And I do when I work with my clients on post divorce healing or getting through that divorce difficult period. I do really encourage them to think about what outlet and um, or hobby, but a creative experience that they can have that will just take them out of their mind a little bit and let them get into a flow of some sort. And I think that that is such a very good point that people, I think, forget that they think mindfulness is breath only, and it's so not.
Right. And to connect the dots with, I love that you mentioned inner child work and reparenting yourself. That is a really powerful technique and modality. And so when you're immersing yourself in creativity, whether it's dance or painting or being in nature, hiking, you really are connecting with your inner child.
Mm.
And so that inner child of you, it's that childlike sense of excitement and wonder and look, I'm dancing and that is opening the pathways to that creative energy to come in and support you and really help in your healing process.
Yes.
So I just wanted to acknowledge the fact that, inner child work is deeply profound.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, I just got back from a festival called Interfusion Festival, and I attend it every January. I started attending it the year of my divorce, I believe, or the year after. And it's like a 3-day festival in DC, but it has all different forms of dance and yoga and acro yoga, and then courses on a whole bunch of other things, Thai massage and but there's so much playfulness in a lot of the activities you're doing and the dance and everybody who's there just has a lightness to them, and I feel like that was a gift I gave to myself as well, which the dance led to me finding that festival. So it's interesting, you try one thing and it opens up a door to another thing, and but I go, it's in January and I feel like it's a nice way for me to start my year to bring in that playfulness. And I never thought about it, but you are kind of connecting to your inner child when you are doing those kinds of activities. That's pretty a neat way to look at it as well.
Yeah, and when you talk about, if I had to say, if people were to ask me, where do I start? How do I start? Really get curious and playful.
Yeah.
And that combination um, really can take you in all kinds of adventurous directions.
Yes.
And that was my experience in my when I was at the bottom and trying to figure out how to move forward. Oh, let me try this and let me try that, and let me explore. Let me sort of have that childlike curiosity, and
Mhm.
and it was nothing short of healing and magical and fun and funny as well at times. So I would highly recommend folks just remember those two things. And whether you call it mindfulness or inner child work or creativity, embodying those two values, just, playfulness and curiosity, take those two ingredients and see where they take you.
Absolutely. And something to like what we mentioned earlier, but something I learned when I was working with an attachment coach for a little while is that some of us can fall into binary, like black and white thinking. And if they try something and it doesn't go well or they don't enjoy it, like they might then look at it as that was a failure. Instead, if you look at it as I'm curious and I'm trying these things. And if I decide I don't like that, then now that was something I now know that I don't like, but it wasn't bad. It was just now I know that and I try something else. And getting away from that binary thinking of success or failure, especially when you're trying to do that exploration and find the things that bring you joy at this new stage of life.
Yeah, and that goes back to our perfectionist side.
Mhm.
And, we want it to feel right or we want it to look a certain way. And so, really, releasing attachment is another way to remind ourselves um, that it's not all or nothing. And you could do a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And maybe it doesn't work now. It might work years from now. We don't know. So again, yeah, just bringing in that self-compassion and that sense of adventure a little bit, that sense of curiosity and that childlike, um, playfulness, I
Yeah.
think is really a way to start on that path.
Mm. I love that. I love everything that you're talking about. And I think in today's world, if more people could just start to explore this a little bit more for themselves and take baby steps into it, uh, the world would be a better place for sure.
Oh my
And
goodness. Yes.
yeah, so more people seeking out coaches like you to help them incorporate that into their day-to-day life. It really is so it would just add so much to their lives, and then it pays it forward. The ripple effect on others is it really just would be pretty profound. So,
It would, and I want to add that sense of community can be found in places like festivals or retreats,
mhm,
or these group containers, whether they're online or in person,
mhm,
can really help you along the way.
yeah,
And so the in-person meetups are fantastic. Having those 3-day weekend intensive retreats can give you that deep dive that you want and seek, and be that launching pad. And along the way, because most of us have a hard time weaving in the learnings from a retreat in our day to day. And so looking for these, what I call containers, and I offer a monthly series for that reason, to be honest with you, where we have, weekly meetups virtually. And that's a way to practice, to come back to the group, to
mm,
share, to learn, to grow. And really you're being accountable to yourself along the way. So that can be helpful to some people as well.
yeah. I totally believe that group learning, working in a group of people, it's you learn from each other, and then you have that compassion from each other that can teach you how to be compassionate to yourself, and you can cheerlead for others and support others, which helps you as well and feel so good. I think there's so many benefits to finding a group that fits your needs and that you feel safe and comfortable in. So that's good to know that you offer that. And if you had to add any just last words about uh, things related to what you do and why you do it, any last thoughts?
Oh my goodness, we covered so much
I
and
know.
so many good pieces, all different aspects of mindfulness. So my hope is that your listeners have had a good sense of what mindfulness is, and that it's not just about meditation.
Mm,
And it's, if anything, meditation is a very small part of it.
mm,
So let's see, I'm thinking what would be the last piece that I would say. We talked about, the ingredients of starting and exploring and getting curious. And really, wherever you find yourself in a stressful situation and you're feeling you know, at the bottom, that inner light is dim. Um, it's important to remind yourself that you're not alone and that we are all connected in our suffering. And that can bring us, by leaning on each other, we really can uplift ourselves and remind ourselves that we are worthy of the life that we want to live. And and that starts by tending to ourselves before we tend to others.
mm. Thank you. That's beautiful. So if people want to find you, where can they find you online?
The best place to go is my website. It is mindfullifetransition.coach. And from there, you can find my social media links and other projects, the workshops and retreats that I'm working on. So that is the best place to find me.
Okay, wonderful. Well, it was a pleasure speaking with you today, and I loved everything about the conversation. I think it's so important. These are topics that would be so helpful for everybody to hear, those going through divorce and any life transition, and just for living a happier, healthier, more peaceful life. So I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me.
Thank you so much for having me, Lee. It was such a pleasure to talk about mindfulness in all the different ways. And yes, we all deserve to live mindfully and find meaning in life. Thank you.
Take care.
Take care.